as beautiful as the day I lost you.
Hey guys, it's the Pink King here. If you remember, not too long ago, I talked about Walking with Dinosaurs 3D and just how truly atrocious it was and completely stained the legacy of Walking with Dinosaurs permanently. But another spin-off I didn't mention was actually one of 3 sets of spin-offs, all centered around one man in particular. The man, the myth, the Steve Irwin of paleomedia, Nigel Marven. If you're a fan of Walking With, he needs no introduction, as his legacy speaks for itself. But in case you're unaware of him, you disappointment? How dare you not know him, heresy! Nigel Marven is a wildlife specialist with a deep history in nature and wildlife, and also a fascination with the prehistoric world, with him being the star of stuff like Prehistoric Park, the narrator of a few games, and was the protagonist in 3 Walking With spin-offs: The Land of Giants, The Giant Claw, and the one we're talking about today, Sea Monsters. Released in 2003, Sea Monsters was the 3rd spin-off of Walking with Dinosaurs, once again produced by the BBC and created by Impossible Pictures, the people behind the original series and Primeval. Sea Monsters was the spin-off that was both the most different from the original show, and yet was the one that people loved the most, including me. And after rewatching it again after several years, it's not hard to see why exactly it has the reputation it does. For me, I first saw this movie as a kid, and immediately I was sucked into this world, with the documentary succeeding from what Walking with Dinosaurs did, by not only being educational, but by being able to portray its education in fun and creative ways without losing its genuine. But what's the special about? Well, unlike a lot of other documentaries, this one actually did something rather outside the box. It follows Nigel Marven being a time traveller, who goes back in time to several places to swim in the 7 most deadly seas. How is he able to time travel? Who knows? Is it important? Not really. Is it cool as hell though? Oh yeah. This is the concept throughout the entire special, and honestly, it's kinda perfect. It's quick, easy to understand, and brings the viewer in the right way, as you feel like you're going on these adventures with him. Speaking of him, this entire series wouldn't have been able to work if it wasn't for Nigel Marven. Nigel is called Steve Irwin of Dinosaurs for a very good reason. His personality is incredibly joyful, he has an enthusiasm that is so palpable and infectious, that even if the effects aren't convincing, you're believing everything you're seeing is real because Nigel's reactions alone, he's just like us, someone who loves prehistory and simply wants to learn as much as he can. Also, you gotta give him credit, for a guy who specializes in wildlife, he makes a very convincing actor. Which is another reason why we as an audience are so invested in his story, because the creators behind these specials went the extra mile to make sure that despite its ridiculous concept, it feels genuine and serious. These people aren't invincible observers like we are, they have to play it safe, having to take special breathing equipment because the oxygen is low, or needing to make a makeshift chainmail armor for more bitey creatures, and even specialized shark cages and cattle prods to keep safe from dangerous creatures. It's those small details that they didn't need to add, but because they do, it feels much more engaging, as not only do you get the educational side, but you also get the story side, as it's able to invest you into these characters and make you genuinely care what happens. So not only do you learn this information better, but you get an anchor that makes you want to keep watching, because as great as Walking with Dinosaurs was, you never needed to finish the whole thing. After all, the whole show of Walking with Dinosaurs was an anthology format, so in reality you could just watch only one episode and never really needed to watch everything else. But here, you need to watch it all, as its goal of conquering all the deadly oceans and whether or not they can survive and actually do it is enough to keep you invested and makes you want to watch all the way to the end. Now, being able to make a dramatic shift in documentary method is highly impressive, as it is. However, that's not the only major change this spin-off makes, as it also makes a big shift in what creatures it talks about, as now it's not only oceanic creatures, but animals from the most dangerous oceans in history. So a lot of new ideas had to be implemented in order to work, but they still need the same philosophy of Walking with Dinosaurs, that being showing these creatures as animals and not movie monsters. And you know what? They really pulled it off perfectly here. They strike that right balance. Not only are these creatures presented as strange yet majestic beings that inhabit their own side of nature and the food chain, but also made sure to keep the very real danger about them, with our characters having to take extra precautions to ensure nothing goes wrong. And it works rather fantastically, with my favourite segments being their time in the Devonian and the segment with the Megalodon, as they implemented a lot of speculative behaviour that's ruled in logic from today, like shark cages or baby megalodons living in more shallow reefy areas. It never feels far-fetched or unrealistic, and always manages to make us interested and yet feels so real. However, as much as I would love to think that this show is perfect, as it ages, a lot of stuff has either become completely inaccurate or were never accurate to begin with. As an example, take the creature that detaches its tail. Yeah, the real animal wouldn't have been able to do that, as cool as it was. Alongside a lot of inaccuracies with the designs, especially the Liplorodon, that still has the Walking with Dinosaurs model and not an updated one, as even for the time, that Liplorodon was very inaccurate. Also, there are times where this series will do a certain thing so many times that it can start to feel a little repetitive. Take the cliffhanger endings as an example, that show Nigel Marven almost dying or in serious peril, when we know he won't actually die. In those areas, I feel the writers fell into the trap of trying to add suspense, but in reality it felt more forced, and because we all know it's going to continue, but as cliffhangers it's definitely not their best. But despite the issues, this show still is quite incredible, with it showing a new side to prehistory on a big budget, and ultimately took the opportunity and made it work amazingly. In comparison to the other spin-offs, this one would easily be my favourite, as not only does it take the biggest risk in comparison, but it manages to bring the same charm of what came before and double it, to not only create a masterpiece in television, but a true worthy successor to Walking with Dinosaurs. So, if you haven't watched it yet, or simply don't remember it, I highly recommend you rewatch this. There's a lot of good stuff in here, and despite its age, I think you'll all be able to be just as enthralled as you were as a kid. But before you do that, there's something I need to ask you. What do you think of sea monsters? Do you love it, or were you not fond of it? Be sure to let me know your thoughts in the comments. I read each and every single one you guys put, and I'm very interested to see what your guys' opinion on this show is. Also, if you guys want me to make a video about the other Walking With specials like The Giant Claw or Land of Giants, then like this video. If this video gets 100 likes within a week, I'll make a direct follow-up to this, looking back on the other spin-offs I missed, because I really enjoy those other spin-offs also, and I feel like it'd be wrong of me to do sea monsters and not talk about the other two. So if you want to see that, 100 likes right now on this video, you have a week, get liking. And with that, it's been the Pink King, and I will see you all next time.